Hello, everybody, and welcome to Two Geeks and One Noob, where we gather friends of similar interests and maybe not so similar, and discuss, joke, learn more about, and generally have fun with geek culture. Today, we're discussing Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, good. It's not the overly tall blue people.
Correct.
This is one that all three of us have some sort of like connection to, and there's not necessarily a noob in this one per se, because all three of us have various levels of enjoyment on it.
Absolutely. Oh, well, I think quite clearly, Caleb, the most noobish of all of us and the least interested of all three of us is clearly you.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
I clearly don't have a tattoo on my arm from this show. That'd be ridiculous.
Right?
Mr. Earthbender, you.
You know what I'm about. What can I say?
And every time I hear Earthbender, I think...
I just think of Toph doing the earthbending roller skating.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, my first thought when I think of Toph is usually either one of the Badgers or it's the time she invents metal bending.
Yeah. Well, the bending skating away was right after when she escaped from that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the skating, was it like above? I forget if it was
Yeah,
above,
it was
the
above
ground
the ground.
or if it was
like
kinda...
she basically just had mounds of earth like kind of attached to her feet, and she was just moving her feet up like kind of like riding a bike or an elliptical or something.
Right.
And the earth was moving underneath her as she was like zooming away.
I have to say that Avatar: The Last Airbender is definitely one of my favorite quote unquote / whatever animes that
We're gonna say it, and if you're
perfect.
if someone disagrees, you're just wrong. We're not gonna argue this.
Okay.
Let's move on.
It's one of my favorite animes because it brings together a couple of my favorite things: is cartoons, superpowers, and I can't remember what the other thing was that I was going to say, but those two things.
Mark Hamill.
But it's just so cool because like the elemental element of it is really cool. And
Yep.
Well, it's such a fascinating universe, just with the four bending and seeing like how bending kind of holds a place in society as technology continues to grow throughout like Korra and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just seeing how different society is. It's like, okay, we still have benders. Now we have like police that are specifically working with metal bending because things are so different. The standard bending doesn't quite have the same oomph to it, so they're having to really think outside of the box and kind of shooting themselves in the foot. So it's just such a like an interesting universe and so many good characters.
Yeah. The original series had so many good ones, like the obviously the main ones being Katara, Sokka, Toph, and Aang.
Yep. And Momo.
And Momo, of course. Oh, and
Appa.
Appa. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like really all of the good guys in Avatar: Last Airbender are good, and then Legend of Korra has the really good villains.
Yeah.
And there's like obviously good bad guys and good guys in both series that kind of like cross over, but like the Aang gang, the Aang gang is what stands out in Avatar: Last Airbender, and I would consider Iroh part of that, even though I didn't really like travel with them like Zuko did and some of the others, but he was like working with them at one point. So I still consider him under that umbrella. Whereas like Bolin was really entertaining, but the rest of the Korra crew was like, eh.
Yeah.
And then it had those really enjoyable villains. It was like, oh, they actually might win this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they had all sorts of different cool versions of the bending that was just like, what? That is crazy.
Well, that's one thing I'll tag on to what Caleb was saying earlier about how it was shaping society and how that was just how they worked. We start to see that even in the original series, where in the backstory elements you see how, hey, each tribe, each group, they learn this bending style from something in their surroundings of how to affect what's immediately and predominantly in their surroundings. Yeah. But then we see throughout the course of that series where as people are starting to realize, like, hang on, the Fire Nation is basically telling us, don't do this. But they're doing it, and it's completely revolutionized their society. Why can't we try to at least improve our own? Why can't we at least try to improve our own?
Because the Fire Nation attacked.
Yeah.
But you start to see that shift where it's no longer they're learning this because of their environment, but they're now learning it as part of their culture to affect their environment differently.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the swamp ones that were like...
Oh, God.
Using the water, like water bending the water in the seaweed and stuff like that. Yeah.
Those episodes will haunt you.
Yeah.
Well, it's just
They're
like
fun, though. Like,
They are
it's
fun,
the same
but-
thing with the earthbenders in the desert using the sand to like create the tornadoes and
Right.
effectively like airbend using sand.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way.
Well, and I guess you see that in all kinds of other ways. There's also like the guy with the tattoo on his head that shoots the combustion out of
Combustion Man.
Combustion Man. And then there's the earthbender in Legend of Korra that does earthbending but creates so much intense pressure with the rocks that he creates magma. And so it's this completely different, unique form of bending that we hadn't seen up to that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
The evolving of the
the
different
art.
bending is really cool.
I would
It's
love
kind
to
of their
see it
own-
like go back to like a prequel and just see like how different things were before people started to pick up on these unique skills.
Right.
Or was there a unique skill that was used back then that has been lost?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Which-
with the announced series that
the
are coming
Netflix
out, it looks
movies?
like it seems like the Paramount.
Paramount
it's-
movies. Sorry.
yeah.
Paramount movies.
Well, it's technically through the Avatar Last Airbender studio that the creators opened. It's like Paramount is funding it and running everything.
Well,
But
Paramount owns Nickelodeon.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
staying in house technically.
But they're letting them have their free reign with it and not doing what they did with Korra, where there's just like, okay, will we get another season? Are we canceled after this season? There was so much uncertainty going into each season of Korra. That was what caused the writing and the storytelling to be so different.
Kind of
Then-
drop off a bit.
Right. And I'm hoping that we won't see some of those same issues with Korra with the movies that they announced, especially since, again, they're not having that uncertainty that they had with Korra when it was just like, will we or won't we? And the movie and the actual creators being behind it and just having that creative freedom. And I think that's going to be exciting with all three of the movies. And it's something that I was talking with my buddy Gabe about earlier, just the way that they're doing these and the fact that we have all three movies revolving around completely different characters. It's really cool to see that they're not doing what they did with the whole Skywalker problem in the Star Wars movies, where it's like we have this one specific bloodline, we don't know how to branch off from it. We're going to stick with this and just use those characters to establish other characters. No, we're going to go ahead and create our own universe, our own characters.
Yeah.
And that's like and the way that they're doing it too, we have a prequel, a present, and a future
Yep.
set up
okay.
with the movie. So we've got the Kyosho movie, which is going to be before Aang, like by a good bit.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have Aang, or the Zuko movie. That's not going to directly involve Aang, most likely. It'll probably revolve around Zuko during his time during exile and whatnot. And then we have, or no, it's actually based on the picture. It's going to be when he's Fire Lord. So it'll be post.
So
Last
they'll probably
Airbender.
have Aang in there a little bit with some like
Well, and
Avatar
did-
Fire Lord,
right?
friendship.
And they did like work together very closely. So like it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And then we also have the actual Korra movie. Katara. Where'd that come
Korra, yeah.
We have the Korra movie that is after Aang's passing. So it's going to be interesting to see. And the fact that they're sticking with animated is also them kind of trying to shake the stigma of the live action movie that doesn't exist.
Yeah. I was gonna say the
Stole my joke.
Got to be quicker than that.
the nice thing about the whole not following a specific bloodline is that, like with the Skywalker saga, it was very hard to move away from that because the Skywalker family was so integral in the
Not
story.
entirely true. Mandalorian didn't follow the Skywalkers.
Yep.
I'm talking about the movie. The movie
Rogue
saga.
One didn't.
Rogue One didn't follow the Skywalkers. Solo
wasn't
didn't
part of the
follow the
Skywalker
Skywalkers.
It was part of the same timeline.
The issue is that it was more them using established characters to try and force the new characters down our throats while they were changing the established characters. That's something that I'm hoping that we won't see with Avatar Last Airbender, and that, especially since they are doing different timelines, different characters that didn't really have any direct interactions outside of Aang going into the spirit realm and communicating with Kyoshi. And
Well, that's the thing I was trying to say though, is that with Avatar, I feel like it's a better, or it's easier to go off on different storylines because they have so many different storylines that they could go off of because there's been hundreds of avatars.
Yeah.
So, like, they can go off of this storyline and go, okay, Kyoshi has its own storyline.
Yeah.
Whereas Skywalker, I feel like there was this one storyline, and then they went, okay, we can branch off of those.
Like, I mean, it's a galaxy with millions of characters. But back to the Last Airbender. This argument will take over, and it'll be an all-night thing. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do with it, and especially with the creators being involved.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like the live-action situation where it's just like, oh, we actually don't agree with the decisions you're making. We're out. Okay, cool. We'll keep making this without you then.
Yeah.
It's them working on their own thing, having the free reign to do things. And I'm especially excited for Kyoshi because she is such an interesting character. And just based on what my friends Gabe and Dan have told me of the book with Kyoshi, like, she's just a beast. Entirely different mindset than Aang, where it's like, I've always got to find the peaceful option. She's like, body count? Ha! Double it.
Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they start this one off with Aang in the spirit world talking to Kyoshi, and then Kyoshi just taking over the storyline.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me at all if they move that route, or if they take a similar tack with the Korra film, where it's interspersed with Korra going into the spirit realm, talking to other avatars, figuring like, what would you do?
My prediction is that Korra is going to be what happens after the Korra series, in which case that's not going to be an option.
How so?
She can't. Y'all have seen Korra, right?
I didn't finish
I don't think I finished it, no.
Do you want me to spoil it?
No, go ahead.
So guys, sorry, we turned
breaks
this into
the
one geek,
connection.
two noobs.
So, spoiler alert, which granted the series has been out for a while, so that's on you. Like, she breaks the connection with all of the past Avatar.
Oh, wow.
And she,
that's right. That's
because
right.
of like the events that happen in season 2 or 3, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but she loses that connection with the spirit world and all of the previous avatars. So it's going to be I think it's going to be post Korra, and it's going to be probably her kind of reestablishing that Avatar spirit world connection is my guess, setting up for future stuff, because if they're getting their own studio and being able to just run with it and do whatever they want, it would make sense that we see more stuff revolving around post Korra as well as prequels. And please give us a season on just pro bending. Just that's all I want. Just a whole show about pro bending, because that's friggin' dope.
And if my speculation is right, I think we may actually start seeing. Love that vote of confidence there, bud.
Well, if we've learned anything in the past, Caleb was pretty good at predicting things.
He is.
So.
Yes.
And like, this is just a guess because we have absolutely no information on what's going to happen. The only thing we see is like the picture of all of the individual characters. And I'm just guessing that that's what we're going to see with Korra, just the way that the show started off and what happened throughout the show. It would not make a lot of sense to do something during the events of the show or before, unless they were focusing on that pro bending aspect and just did a fun movie around that, which, as much fun as that would be, I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
And so
I would see more of a series than a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That, yeah.
And so my guess is that it's going to be post Legend of Korra storytelling.
Well, I also think that we're going to see branching out into other media beyond comics and books and obviously shows. I think we may actually see genuine story-driven games, not just, hey, here are your favorite characters from the series and look at them all fighting together or against each other.
Yeah.
Because a couple of years ago, I don't know if y'all were tracking this, but there was a fan-made game made inside of it's a PlayStation exclusive Dreams.
Okay.
Based on the Avatar series. Nickelodeon kept giving Paramount, or one of the overhead companies kept giving kind of cease and desists on this fan-made game. The fans weren't asking money for it. It's just kind of a, hey, we've made this world inside of this other game.
Right.
So they're getting nothing out of it. And then all of a sudden, as far as I was tracking, the cease and desist letters stopped. So it would not surprise me at all if they finally caved and said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and try to get an actual game going again.
I think that would be a really smart thing to do because we've had some previous games, but it was kind of just more so tracking the story that we already had from the show. It wasn't anything unique, wasn't introducing any new characters. I think it would be really cool to see that. I would love to see something like what the Hogwarts game that we've got coming out, where it's a completely customizable character living in this world, and maybe like kind of a different aspect of like the Siege of Ba Sing Se, where you're having to fight off some Fire Nation soldiers or something like that.
But nothing happens in Ba Sing Se.
Including death. So I think that would be really interesting. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. That's just my hopes and dreams. But yeah, I think that the Avatar, or really the Avatar universe, would just be something that would be so rich for gaming.
Oh yeah. I mean, just
could you imagine if you could create your own custom character and pick the style and the clan and just like customize like crazy and
that would be amazing.
It'd be awesome.
It would be like making your own avatar. Sorry. Anyway.
I am both proud and so disappointed.
Yes, very much so.
Hey, I'm becoming a dad. I gotta get him. I gotta get him out where I can.
Gotta get your practice going.
You are gonna have so much time for dad jokes. Like, this is not something that's like I have a hard stop right here. This is like no, you have the rest of your life, my friend.
But yeah, no, the game idea. I would love to see that though. But kind of going back to the movies themselves, like obviously we saw, like literally we've only seen the promo picture of the 3 different movies,
and if memory serves, they're coming out a year apart each, right? Mm-hmm. Or roughly.
Yeah. So the first one, let me pull up that picture. I believe it was supposed to be next year. Okay, so the Kyoshi movie is 2024, Zuko 2025, and then Korra 2026.
Okay, so
so long,
right? But the quick
succession in towards the end of June, my guys. So like, it is.
We're at the halfway point.
It's still 2 more years, a year and a half though.
Yeah, but it's gonna probably go by a little bit quicker than we realized, especially once Marvel Dice Throne comes in. But
different topic.
That will be another episode, by the way. Anyway,
but I think with with the rapid release of those, I think that kind of implies that they're building up to something else, either at the tail,
definitely.
either to pair with the release in 2026 or in 2027. There's going to be some big announcement that's going to be kind of a big return to form for the franchise as a whole.
Mm-hmm. You think like a new TV show or like
that would make the most sense, I think.
I think so too.
Considering the origins of the
especially
series,
if we look at like let's take anime into the case, for example. So like we had Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods, and we had Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F, and those were precursors to Dragon Ball Super. Something that started after that, and it's now its own ongoing thing. There's been a 3rd movie. They're continuing the manga. They're really building up this universe to say, okay, Dragon Ball is not dead. I think it's going to be a lot of that same thing with the Avatar's movies.
Yeah.
We're going to see these 3 movies that are touching on one character that we don't know a lot about, that the fans love and want to know more about, an established character that everyone loves, and a character that has been a little bit more not controversial, just not as well received, that they're building up. And it's like really them expanding on this incredible universe that so many people love and saying, buckle up.
Yeah.
A lot more is coming, I think.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm probably more looking forward to the Zuko movie myself. Like, I'm definitely looking forward to Kyoshi in and of itself, because it's a different storyline that I don't know a lot about. But Zuko has always been one of my favorite characters. Yeah. So like seeing a movie just about him and his journey after the events of Avatar, and being Fire Lord, dealing with his past, dealing with his friendship with Aang, and maybe a love.
Of Iroh.
The loss of Iroh. Yep,
It's
that would be
probably gonna touch on like his relationship and starting up his family and whatnot.
Yeah, with May, right? Yeah.
What I think, so I agree with you. I do think Zuko is an incredible character, and he's definitely one of my favorites. There's a couple reasons why I'm more excited about Kyoshi. 1, Earthbender. Duh.
Yeah.
2, it's this character that has always looked really interesting that we have so little about unless you happen to have read the books.
Right.
In which case, then you know a lot more about her and just know how beastly she was. And so, like, that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to her movie a little bit more.
Yeah.
Is because she is a character that I'm very curious about and want to see. Whereas with Zuko, we had such a satisfying arc in the show, and the way his character was built and developed throughout the series, I had a very satisfying ending with it. Again, I'm very much excited for the Zuko movie, and I can't wait to see it. And I want to see more of his character, but I'm also really content with what we've gotten from his character.
Yeah.
And so Kiyoshi just has that slight leg up above him for that one.
Yeah. I can definitely see how you could feel that way. I mostly agree. Like I definitely agree that he had a very satisfying end to his storyline. But I've always been a very big fan of fire. Like firebending to me is like one of the best things in the world.
The way you paused for a second there made me think of Hotel Transylvania. Fire bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, firebending is really cool. And just the way that it's like, it could potentially damage the wielder, and just like being able to see unique things like
And the lightning bending.
I was about to point that out.
Iroh like breathing out the hot steam on his cuffs to burn the guards in that one episode, and like firebending out of his feet. Like, there's just so many cool things, and like I still love the joke. I saw him warming up tea. It's a tea shop. Like, I agree with you. Firebending's cool, but
Yeah.
being the stubborn ginger I am, I gotta love me some earthbending.
There is one aspect of the Zuko show that I'm actually really intrigued by, and I think this is probably where they're going to take it plot-wise, and so I am leaving this completely open for me to be wrong. But I think with how strong the reign of the Fire Nation was during that time whenever Zuko was just the prince and the exile, I think during that time what we're probably going to see in the show is probably other nations or other small factions trying to rise up saying, no, you enslaved us.
Yeah.
We're striking back.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be him taking these lessons learned from the rest of Aang, Katara, and everybody else, taking those lessons learned and turning it around like, okay, yes, we screwed up.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also going to be a bit of like him establishing it's like, okay, yes, we're the Fire Nation. We did some terrible things. None of that. Well, I wasn't directly responsible for all of that. I did some of it. But I'm also not the same person. So you can't hold me accountable for the father's sins. But you also need to remember, I'm the Fire Lord for a reason. I am strong. Don't think you can just walk all over us.
yeah.
I think it could be a very unique dichotomy of like, yes, I'm strong, but I'm also meek.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm going to be a good Fire Lord. I'm going to be someone who works with you and works.
That was kind of the difference between Ozai and Iroh.
Yeah.
Ozai was powerful, and when he wasn't showing off that power, he was conniving.
Yeah.
Whereas Iroh was rarely showing off that power, and he was, as you very aptly put it, meek.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, even throughout the series, we don't know how hardened a warrior the man is until one episode when he's escaping prison.
Yeah. I was going to say that, and also the idea of him being the warrior that took down Ba Sing Se.
Yeah.
Like, he was a beast.
Oh, yeah.
And you knew it, but you didn't know it enough.
Well, his
character.
conquest on Ba Sing Se was a failed conquest.
Oh, it was. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I forgot
He
about
nearly did single-handedly take down that city.
Yeah.
And it is a fortified city.
Yeah.
However,
That's what it was. He was the one that almost took it down, but it was
Yep.
Okay.
and another aspect that I hope they hit on if they go that route, another aspect I hope they hit on is that he was a professional warrior, not a bloodlust, gotta get me some type of mentality. He
was
had
doing his
respect for
duty.
his opponent,
Yeah.
but he also had a greater respect for the country he was defending or fighting for. And we see that in those episodes where he walks into Ba Sing Se and just immediately dawns on him like, hats off to you guys.
Yeah.
Because y'all defeated me at my best.
Yeah, I think one other thing too that I think would be a really cool thing for them to show is like Zuko dealing with the loss of Iroh, but at the same time, like realizing or showing the same kind of loss from him as Iroh did for his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was part of what actually caused him to lose that battle at Ba Sing Se. Like, his spirit was broken because of his son's passing.
Yeah.
And so had he not had that tragic incident in his life, like, he very well could have taken Ba Sing Se.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But seeing Zuko go through the same, like not exactly the same loss, but a very similar loss of this was basically my father.
Yeah.
And like having that.
I feel like we'll still see some of that issue with him just kind of dealing with those insecurities that he had from everything that happened to him from his father. And it's just like, okay, I'm the Fire Lord now. I'm in charge, but I don't even feel like I'm worthy of this position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not having his uncle there to be his confidant.
Mm-hmm. So kind of fighting some imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
I could see that.
And who knows, we could see something with like Azula trying to break out or something and him having to
Oh,
deal with
man.
Oh, God.
It's
Crazy old Azula.
It's like him and Katara like fighting at their peak to like take her down, and that was also just because she had mentally snapped at that point. So
I would love to see an older Zuko and Katara like taking her on.
Yeah,
that'd be so cool. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Well, I know that like if I'm remembering correctly, Zuko may have helped with the capture of those 4 prisoners that were working with Zahir and Korra. And that was like later on down the timeline, so we likely won't see that timeline-wise in this movie based on like the images we've seen, but like it would be kind of cool to see something tie in with that.
Yeah. That'd be sick.
Especially considering like Zahir is like one of the most dangerous people in the universe, and up until Korra, he had no bending. So he was kicking butt and taking names just as a Sokka, which Sokka kicked all kinds of people.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
And just a boomerang and a sword.
No, my meteor sword.
Was a pretty awesome sword.
I gotta admit.
You always come back to me, boomerang.
It would be awesome, though, to see even if it's just a short series of of watching Toph go from, I help the Avatar, to, no, I run the police, to being the chief of the police.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome to see that rise and her story arc from that point of just saying, you know what? I'm happy being in the background.
Well, she was like, she likes being in the background, but she also liked not being so restricted where she could just kind of do the bending leagues that she was doing and stuff like that. And she was just like, yeah, I'm in the background, but I'm also the champion kicking everyone's butt over here. So.
Return of the Blind Bandit.
Yeah, speaking of Toph, I did end up watching that video that you sent, David, of the kind of the origin story of Toph.
Yeah, the little fan-made video?
Yeah, it was a live-action fan-made video of Toph beginning learning how to earthbend from the
badger moles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. Like, I didn't quite love the pacing of it, but it was
very much a fan project, but it was done so with admiration for the character.
Right. Yeah.
And for those who enjoy the series, would strongly encourage you go look it up. If we can find the creators and the link to it, we'll put it in the show notes. Because I mean, again, it's very much it is a fan film. It is something where people are passionate about the project, passionate about the character, and they wanted to do something to fit those passions.
Yeah.
So, as a rough first outing, they did a good job.
Yeah.
Well, that's the fun thing with fan-made projects is you see this level of passion that you don't see for things outside of that. And it's just like with Filoni taking over Star Wars. It's like this person that has grown up loving this series and having this genuine passion for it is getting to do something where they're working on this, whether it be legitimate through the studio or a fan-made thing on YouTube or whatever. Just that love and passion that you don't see from like big studios are just like, oh, we just want money. Well, let's make money. Cool.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's a question for you guys about the series. What do you think your top? I'm going to say top 2 favorite moments of the original series.
Oh man,
I know there's probably a lot.
there's so many good.
I don't even know
moments.
what mine are, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
I gotta say, one of my favorite moments was when Aang and Katara were fighting with Zuko and Azula in the crystal dungeon underneath Ba Sing Se.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that moment where Katara pulls water around her and she has the like octopus tentacles swirling around her. And it's just like her in just this state where she's like, I am fighting for my life. I am going to take down as many of you as I have to in the process. And just showing her kind of backed into a corner, and she's not like running or scared. She's just like, I am going to take you with me.
Yeah.
And it's just, that was something that always stood out to me, and watching her just like in this state we've never seen her in before. That one definitely stands out to me. And
The start of her mama bear personality.
pretty much, yeah. And then the other one, with Toph being my favorite character, it's got to be all the blind jokes that she makes about herself.
Yep.
And just like it's just the fun fact.
Oh, look, there it is. That's what it's going to sound like when one of you sees it.
Yeah. And just her being able to have fun with it, and it's just like, I'm blind, I can't do anything about it. May as well just take the mick out of it while I'm doing it.
Yep.
Nobody can make fun of you when you're making fun of yourself.
Exactly. And Toph is just such a good character with like inventing the earthbending and just that great moment in the final season where she like knocks the metal door down and just falls into it and wraps it around herself, starts kicking butt, and it's just like, oh, she's scary.
Like, not only is she a powerful earthbender, she's an inventive, powerful earthbender.
Definitely.
Inventive and stubborn enough to say, oh, I can't bend metal. Watch me.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Hold my tea.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it would be like number one moment. God. Number one moment for me would probably be Iroh's arc. His, God.
His prison.
Not just his
Scene
prison
or-
arc,
his arc
but even
in
his
general.
arc
just-
in
yeah.
general. And that might be a bit of a cop-out, but whatever, I'll take it.
Like, he's got such an enjoyable arc throughout the
He
whole
does.
series.
I mean, it's
just watching him like,
it's impactful, it's powerful. You see these moments of immense strength to absolute weakness.
I remember I was reading something on a meme site that was talking about Iroh, and it was just the struggles he had as kind of being the father figure for Zuko. And it was like just him trying to piece together. It's like, okay, I had a son. I remember when he was a teenager and he had all this angst and like was acting the way that Zuko was.
He had all this Aang.
His was because of just being a teenager. I need to try and figure out when is it him being an awkward teenager trying to figure things out, and when is it him dealing with this legitimate trauma that he has. And there was like that moment when Zuko went on that date in Ba Sing Se and came back, and he was just like, I don't want to talk about it, and slams the door behind him. And Iroh, that look on his face is like just this fear of hoping that it's like, I just wanted him to have one normal night as a teenager.
Yeah.
And just like that concern. And then Zuko pops his head out and was like, it was nice. And then just shuts the door. And just that genuine happiness and relief on his face when he was just like, my boy got his moment, you know?
Yeah.
It was just like, man, his arc is so good. And just
Yeah.
same thing with him and Zuko in the end when he was just like, I was scared that you lost your way. I wasn't upset with you. And it's just like, one character had so many emotionally driven moments throughout that series.
Kind of something to clarify what you said, David, about from going from strength to weakness. I wouldn't necessarily call it weakness. I think it was emotional, definitely. But I don't
You're
think...
right. Not weakness, but more of just absolute despair.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a despair in his strength. Yes.
Yeah.
Or strength in his despair. I should say.
Yeah. And this is part of the reason why I haven't finished Korra and I'll go ahead and chuck this up as my second point for the original series. The original series was able to bring up extremely heady topics for its audience.
Yes.
And not just heady, but genuinely heavy topics and did so with a respect for the topic and the audience. Like, they didn't dumb things down, but at the same time, they didn't over-explain or pander the topic.
Yeah.
Just saying, yes, this is bad, but we need to be able to make the best of it. So if that's either you're noticing a problem, cool, you're part of the solution now.
Yeah.
Or if it's one of those moments of, you can't fix this, your best thing to do is to move on and help others do the same.
Yeah. I think there's a combination of things with the way that they touched on those heavy topics, that being like the stories that were provided with the books before the show, and then the way that Dave Filoni told the story. Because we saw a lot of that with his work in Clone Wars, where they touched on some genuinely scary topics. There was moments where you're just sitting there like, this is a kid's show? There's no way this is a kid's show. And that's kind of a common theme in things that Dave Filoni works on, is just like him touching on some genuinely difficult topics, whether that be something that he's specifically bringing to the table or something that was in an established canon that he's adapting into the show. Like, he's always done such a good job of that. And I agree, like, that the Avatar touched on those topics so well, and just dealing with like different kinds of depression from different angles with these characters, and the trauma and the things that they dealt with throughout the show, and just different kinds of trauma. And like, it's got some very heavy moments that are told really well and shown the respect that they need to be shown.
Yeah, absolutely. And a close third, would be the running jokes. The comedic timing of the show is awesome. Yeah. But the running jokes that kind of tie it in, where you're almost expecting them to pop up at any moment. And those moments when they don't, you just feel that absence of them. It's like, oh, come on. But then you realize they're using that absence to drive another point home. Yeah. And then they give you that moment of just, there it is. Yeah. Now you can laugh.
It's one of those shows that you have to watch through a couple times to like pick up on some of those subtleties. Because like the first time watching through it, you're like, oh, that would have been a funny moment for a joke. Then the second time you're watching through it, you're like, oh,
that would have killed the point if they did it. Yeah,
there.
Exactly. Yeah,
nice.
So what about you, Dan?
Mine. I'd have to say, like I said, Zuko is one of my favorite characters. So I think one of my favorite moments is when Zuko and Aang end up going to see the dragons. And they do the dragon dance and everything like that. It shows them working together, and Zuko turning that corner of like, no, I'm not gonna do this. I'm a strong, not a dancer, and blah blah blah. And then he just does it, and it's just like, okay, I realize I have to lower myself, or not necessarily lower myself, but
coming to unison for truly coming to unison for the first time.
Yeah.
And that connection is like where we've been kind of working together, but we don't have that connection. We don't fully trust each other.
And he's trying to teach Aang firebending, and it's just not working because there's no unison there. So it's like,
there's no trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, it's just like everything goes away. And it's just the trust and the working together, and just we have to do this or we're screwed.
And the fact that the dragons are flying around them in the same unison, it's just like, oh, so cool.
You mentioning that makes me think that would be kind of cool to get around on the test.
Right? That'd be really cool.
I think another cool aspect about it was, and we hit on this a little bit in a previous episode about childhood cartoons, but one of the shows that came up for at least two of us was Samurai Jack, and how it was so good at visual storytelling. Mm-hmm. I think that's something else that the creators for Avatar did exceptionally well, and that is an awesome moment, the Dragon Dance, of showing the audience rather than telling the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, the visual side of things where they don't have to say anything, and they're just the animation in it as well was just like, okay, they know what they're doing when they're doing the motions, when they're doing the forms and of all the martial arts and the dance and stuff. It's just like, okay, this is good art.
Yeah.
There's just so many really good moments where they do that great storytelling, and just the subtle things, like with that moment when the Avatar gang, Zuko and Iroh, have Azula cornered and that rundown village. And it's just that one moment where you see Iroh just quickly look over to Zuko, and Azula just sees it's like, this is my moment, this is my out, and just fires that lightning at him, or the blast at him is just like, this is the only chance I have to escape this because I'm going to lose otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like the subtle things like that, it's just that quick glance. She's like, bam, there it is.
Mm-hmm. And for my second moment, it's one of the sad ones. Again, it's an Iroh arc, but it's the day, like Iroh's day of mourning.
Yeah.
And he's singing the song at the grave, or it wasn't at the grave, but it was
The memorial.
the memorial thing. And it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
that just hits my heart.
Yeah.
That episode, Tales of Ba Sing Se, just
Tales
hits
of
you
Ba
in
Sing
the
Se, yeah.
feels every single time. Like, it doesn't matter how many times I've watched that show or how dead inside I feel, it gets me every time.
Yeah. And whenever a show can pull off something of that magnitude where every time you watch it, you get that punch of just,
Yeah.
gut-wrenching moment where it's like, okay, and life goes on.
Mm-hmm.
That is a testament to the story writing, a testament to the art, a testament to just the creative minds behind it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just the visuals of like Iroh going through his normal day and like not feeling like it's going to end up in this emotional moment. And it just continues to build and just.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, another thing that they do very well in that show is like they do full episodes with almost no talking at all. Like Appa's day of being lost and stuff. No talking whatsoever, except for a little bit of Momo's gurgling.
Well, it's the
And it
same
was just
thing
like-
with Momo's day where he's just running through Ba Sing Se. And it's
Yeah.
like you hear people talking in the background, but it's all focusing on Momo running through the city.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they don't need the talking just to tell this storyline. Granted, they're not my favorite episodes, but they're still well done enough to be like,
There's still episodes that stood out to you
Yeah.
and that you
Oh,
remember.
absolutely.
And so it's like they may not be your favorite episodes, but they clearly made some sort of impact as
Yeah.
you think about them.
exactly.
Yep.
So it's very well done show. I wish they had done as well in Korra.
Agreed.
And I'm very hopeful for the Korra movie. I do think that that's the one that I am clearly the least excited about out of the three.
Yeah.
But I am hopeful because we have these creators that aren't under this time crunch, that aren't working with this uncertainty of what's going to happen. And it's just them being able to take this franchise that they built and just say, this is our story.
Yeah.
This is what we're working on. Here's what we came up with.
Yeah.
And with that one being last in the series, I echo that response where it's more of just, okay, this is hopeful. You're now getting as much leeway as you can possibly get
Yeah.
to tell the story the way you intended to tell it.
Yeah.
We're waiting.
And they have the time to do it because they have
Bingo.
several years to write the story, to get it together, and put it out
I mean,
there.
who knows? It's possible that they already know what they want to do with the story. It's just getting everything mapped out and animated. And that's why they're like, okay, we'll focus on this movie first. Give us a year and some odd to work on it, and then the next movie and the next, and so on. So it's very possible, especially with the typical production time. Like they may already be working on things now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably.
And
They're
it's
at least
very-
in pre-production right now.
It's very possible that they've already got those storylines built.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've been wanting to work on this, and they had the setup where they were going to try and do another series with Netflix that fell through, and now they've got their own studio because Paramount just said, "Okay, here's your money."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely very excited. I think it's a good show.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those that, like, despite all of our different personalities and interests, and like one of us being anti-Disney like crazy, and then one of us being very pessimistic about movies, and then the forever optimist. The fact that all three of us can agree that this is just an incredible and meaningful show,
Yeah.
Yep.
says a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. I just thought of it that way.
Yep.
Like as you were saying it. Like, wow, that's kind of weird.
And again, I think it goes back to the fact that they weren't going to talk down to their audience. They were trying to through individual characters who through completely different worldviews and different outlooks on life due to past experience, were able to talk to different segments of the audience.
Yeah.
So you have those moments where it's that one character who has known nothing but pain, and he's still trucking along. You have other characters who also knew nothing but pain, but seek nothing but revenge.
Yeah.
And others who feel like their childhood has been stolen from them, and yet they're still trying to be a child while they still are, and still realize they carry a lot of weight.
And just seeing like the similarities between characters, but the different paths they take. Where like Zuko is just trying to like gain the respect of his father back. Then we see Jet, who just wants sheer revenge and is angry. And then we see Katara, who's hurt, but she's trying to be that caring person to everyone she can be. And Sokka is just like, I'm going to protect everyone I can because I couldn't protect the people I cared about when I needed to.
Yeah.
And just that difference in like Aang having to deal with the whole like, I'm a pacifist, but I'm in a position where I have to fight. Yeah. And even previous airbenders who were also pacifists are saying, this is your only option.
Yeah. Which small little character elements like that and lore elements show the care that the author, that the creators put into this, where it's not just a matter of, well, how do we work it into the larger story? It's more of a, no. Let's actually go to history and see what characters who were similarly minded, what people who actually were pacifists, when they were faced with absolute evil and terror, what did they do? How did they respond?
Well, and it's like even with that scene where they go back to the Northern Air Temple and they walk into that room and they see Aang's airbending master surrounded by just piles of firebending nation bodies. Yep. It's just like even in that moment, he knew, despite being a pacifist and raising Aang to be a pacifist, he was in this position where he's like, I have no choice. If I do not take these men down, everyone is going to die.
Yeah.
So like slight change here. So we'll change the tone a little bit, and I'll just like
we'll let the resident earthbender move the heavy load here.
Well, just like as a fun little thing to wrap it up here is just like if you could each pick one bending style, what would it be, and explain why?
Gosh.
And like for me, obviously earthbending. Like I have the earthbending tattoo. I love earthbending.
You're a stocky guy.
Stubborn as an ox. Like it just makes sense. You got to be more stubborn than the earth. So like, yeah, that's me. And it's just like some of the cool things we got to see with the earthbending. Like when Toph was in the arena and she like set up the like triangular like tent type thing in front of her to deflect the blast, and then she like shoved one of the walls back at them, and then just like seeing some of the like really cool moments when she was just like spinning around them, twirling her arms and like making things of earth come up to like block the different things, and she's just spinning around in like one fluid movement despite it being like a sturdy substance. Like it's just so many really cool moments of just really fun earthbending stuff.
Yeah. And not to mention like her being able to see through earth is like
that, like her using like the radar through the earth is just so cool. Like it's amazing. There's so many reasons why she's one of my favorite characters, but like, oh man, she's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, so for me, I go a couple of different ways because I go between what I like and what I feel like my personality would say about me, because like I said, I love Zuko, so I love firebending. I love the idea of manipulating fire. It's always been like whenever I did pretending as a child, it was like, no, I like fire in my hand. That's pretty cool. But then thinking about my personality, it's like, I feel like it would be more so like something like airbending, where I'm more of a pacifist. I'm more of a, like, I hate confrontation. I'm more fun-loving. I like to be more like... I'm more like an Aang than anything, you know?
I do think with your personality, airbending does fit you a lot more. Like, I get why you like firebending, but, like, I agree. I don't think that goes with your personality.
Yeah. I'm not as hot-headed. I mean, I can be hot-headed.
And the many years I've known you, I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you do get hot-headed, it's very rare and probably internal.
Very rare, internal, and terrifying.
A silent rage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would probably be a waterbender. Just honest internal accounting there. Waterbending, namely because waterbending is more about it's trying to be... It's looking out for the people around you, and it is kind of a support class, to put it in other parlance. Where
Healing
it's healing, it's that background, but
It's
at
like
the same
it's
time,
an interesting like offensive support.
yeah, exactly what I was hitting at. Where it is that support class, but at the same time, the waterbenders, if it gets down to it, if you don't have a waterbender on your team, you are host. Pun not intended.
Makes me think of that waterbending councilman that Korra fought in that first season, where he brings the water bubble around him and he just starts punching, and it's like he's solidifying the water into ice as he's doing that and sending these ice shards at her. And it's like, yeah, it can be used for healing, but it can also be used to royally screw you up.
Oh yeah, and I mean, much like the sea, you need to find some respect for it. And if you don't find that respect, it will own you.
It's the same concept with like blood bending. Like, it shows that there's so much more to water bending than just simply moving water around you. Like you have to be fluid with your movement. You have to have that consistency and be flexible and whatnot. But like, you also have to like maintain that control and respect, like you said.
Yeah.
It just makes me think, like, in some ways, like being able to quote unquote multi-class in bending, because like it's funny because when you said water, I was a little surprised because personally I almost saw you as Earth.
Really?
Yeah. Because you have a stubborn personality.
No, I don't.
And
Proof
that just
is in the
proves
sarcasm, my friend.
No, and most of the time it's a good thing though. Like you have a very set way of how you think, and so
For better and worse.
exactly that's what I'm saying. Like you have a positive way about it, and sometimes it can have a negative effect. But like overall, that's what I would see you as, is more of a earthbender. But at the same time, the way you were explaining waterbending, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I see that now.
Yeah.
So it's, again, I feel like it could be a very multi-classing thing of bending. But
I'm a mudbender.
yeah, there you go.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up. So, in closing, just remember, be mindful of the cabbage vendor.